What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Athletic Hockey Show. It's Hailey Salvian and Sean Gentili here with you for the Thursday edition of the show. Kevin Kurz is going to join us today from Philadelphia to discuss the Flyers' 3-2-1 start and Matvei Michkov playing some catch-up to start his sophomore season. We'll jump around the league a little bit today, too. But first, of course, let's bring in Sean, who joins me now from a very dim Scotiabank Saddle Dome. Are you having lighting issues today?
I so badly wished that what happened in Calgary last night would have happened when they were playing the Chicago Blackhawks. And I wish it would have happened when Mark Lazarus was on the catwalk, walking over to the press box, because that man hates that setup in the Calgary press box more than anybody hates anything. So for the lights to go out when Laz was walking over there, that would have been that's one of my greatest dreams. And the fact that it didn't is a missed opportunity.
I need to say something, though, because all these media people, I lived in Calgary, I worked in Calgary. You do not have to walk across the catwalk. People do it for fun.
Yeah.
The only people on the other side are team staff and broadcasters. No print media ever has to walk across the catwalk. They do it for the picture. They do it for the photo op. It's fake news. There is no need for the catwalk. I need to say that as somebody who would see every time someone came into Calgary. No. Every time someone came into town, they were like, "Ooh, I'm scared. I'm taking this video." I'm like, "Why are you on the catwalk then?
For attention.
You don't sit over there
for attention."
Right. If you're afraid of heights, don't cross the catwalk.
It's a good bit. It's a good bit. And
No. Sitting in my little press box seat, never having to go there and seeing the videos of everyone crossing the catwalk and freaking out. I'm like, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to. You just chose to.
They wanted to for attention. That's the way it goes.
Anyways, it's actually me who's sitting in a dark room. Something's going on with my lighting. Yeah. I need to speak with the manager because it's not dark in here, but I'm having a lighting issue similar to the Saddle Dome. But just like the Flames and the Habs, I will continue on.
Professional segue. Little Frankie Corrado over here with the segues.
Yeah, it's my professional segue after crashing out on the non-recording part, being like, I don't know how to work this. Somebody needs to help me. The show goes on. The Flames, by the way, off to a very bad start to the season.
Yes,
I was going to say pretty bad. It's just bad. Blanket bad. 1 win in 8 games. Just 1 point above the San Jose Sharks, who don't even have a regulation win yet this season. It's going to be a long season at the Dome. We talked about this already. We were selling our stock in the Flames. We've already been saying, like, you need to just pick a lane. Saw this from Elliot Friedman yesterday. One of his big questions in Calgary is, like, how are the veterans, like a Nazem Kadri, Blake Coleman, how are they going to handle a rough season? And how is Craig Conroy, the general manager, going to navigate all that? I don't know about you, Sean. I think it's pretty simple. You get a bag for Nazem Kadri. Mm-hmm. Trade them, lean into the skid, get what you can, because Kadri could still be like an elite 1B in the postseason. I want to see that guy back in the playoffs. Trade him, get what you can, just end it.
I think you nailed it. I think we as a culture need Nazem Kadri in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Calgary needs to do the right thing. Send him back to Colorado. Send him to Montreal. Please. How about that? Nazem Kadri, second line center behind Nick Suzuki for the Montreal Canadiens, playing the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round of the Atlantic Division playoffs. Like, let's go. Make it happen. Pull the plug immediately because that team stinks. They should get worse. Yeah. Dustin Wolf is the eraser, the cologne for whatever happened last season. It would have been unfair to expect him to do it again.
Yeah.
And he's, I don't want to say regressed. It's too early for that, but he's not standing on his head and doing tricks and keeping that team, in the wild card chase at this point. So if this is what they're going to get from him this season, man, time to do something, because I am tired of watching them already. Do the right thing. Yeah.
Flames lose 2-1 in OT last night to the Montreal Canadiens. You know who didn't lose? The New Jersey Devils. They beat the Wild 4-1. They extend their early season win streak to 6. Sean, you pulled this stat. It's been 3 years since the Devils have even won 4 in a row. They're at 6 already this season. What do you think seems to be doing well in Jersey? Because this is the team that like everyone's been picking, but then maybe this year was the first year where it's like, I can't keep doing this. Now maybe they're showing all the pieces coming together. What are you liking about the Devils early on?
Yeah, shout out to All About the Jersey, the Devils blog. They wrote about that extensively. The 4-game streak finally happening. So I just swiped that right from them.
Okay, great. Because I was like, I don't know if I trust you with this stat, Sean, but I'm glad you got it from elsewhere.
Yes, right. So all credit and or blame to All About the Jersey. And whatever, the streak's at 6 now too, right? So it's only more, kind of more dramatic and more drastic. This is a team that for the last 2 seasons has struggled big time to string together wins, and I think that was a big reason for skepticism about them coming into the season. This is a 112 point team 3 seasons ago. There's a reason that people like them as much as we do. And it's because the bones from that team, your Jack Hugheses, your Nico Hischers, your Jesper Bratts, on and on, they're still there. They're still certainly in their primes, and there's still a reason to think that they can get it done. The issues around that team, though, goaltending, health, legit contributors on the, let's say, third line, I think all of those were reasons for concern. And what we've seen from them early is that all of those questions have been answered kind of in a positive way, right? They're getting more from Dawson Mercer. He stunk down the stretch, especially after Jack Hughes was injured. He's a point per game player. He's centering the third line in a really effective way right now, on and on, right? So what we're seeing is all the questions we had about them heading into the season that was making people kind of maybe not sell their stock, but certainly not buying any more of it in them as a legit contender. All those issues. Luke Hughes looking like a true top pair defenseman this year. Like, we can just go down the list and talk about all the ways that they've kind of positively answered all these questions that we've had for them, and it's been great. They have the best record in the league pretty comfortably here.
Yeah, it's the New Jersey Devils and the Avs at the top with 12 points. They're 6-1 already to start the season.
I meant the Eastern Conference. I misspoke.
It's okay. I'm just letting the Avs fan listeners know that I see them. I hear them. Mm-hmm. I see you at the top of the standings too.
You're holding space for them. Yes,
I am holding space for the Avs fans who are listening to the show. I think one of the things that stands out too is, they are doing this without Jacob Markstrom. He is out right now. He's missed the last few games. Jake Allen's been good. That's why they have him he's not a 1B, because when Markstrom's healthy, you expect him to play a lot. But you've got a guy waiting in the wings who can take on that role and get them some wins when needed. Nico Daws had the win last night pretty comfortably. I think it was 29 saves. I apologize, I don't have it right in front of me. But they've got some depth in the crease. And it seems like they should be okay with their goaltending as long as this doesn't turn into a long-term thing. Markstrom is already on the ice skating, so it shouldn't get to that point. But I know when we first saw the Markstrom injury, I think we talked about it with Jesse last week, and it was like, is this already the start of the injuries happening for the New Jersey Devils? Because every year, as long as they can stay healthy, as long as XYZ can go right, they're going to be fine. And then 2 weeks into the season, Markstrom's hurt. But so far, a week into this injury, it's been all good. 6-1, 6-game win streak, and they've gotten some wins even with Markstrom, sitting out.
Yeah, and I mentioned Luke Hughes kind of in passing earlier. I think we do need to make special note of what we've seen from him so far this year. He's top 20 in game scoring among defensemen. He's paired with Brett Pesce, and Pesce's also been fantastic. That's not an accident, right? He just looks like a guy that's ready to level up. He's got the contract stuff out of the way. His defensive impacts have improved a lot. He's also a big part of the power play, which has been great. It's top 5 in conversion rate. It's top 5 in goals per 60. So any way you slice it, that's been a really effective unit too. I think if they can get those kind of minutes from him on a consistent basis, man, they're going to be interesting. They're going to continue to be interesting. And it all comes back to where we started here. You know, a 6-game winning streak would be impressive for any team, right? But when you look at the problems that they've had stacking those wins over the last couple of years, they had 14 different chances to turn a 3-game streak into a 4-game streak, and they couldn't get it done. That's also from All About the Jersey. The fact that they've gotten that kind of weird random monkey off their back, you know, and really started to play high-end hockey for a protracted amount of time, man, that's a good thing. And it's a good thing for anybody who thought that they, you know, had a chance to look more like the 112-point, you know, super exciting, well-balanced team that we saw a couple years ago. I think we've seen plenty of that so far.
Mm-hmm. GM Tom Fitzgerald did an interview with Pierre LeBrun, I guess, on Wednesday. That's on the Athletic.com, or I guess it's NewYorkTimes.com now. I keep forgetting that. But you can check that out on the app. It's an interesting conversation. They go into like the Devils' next level, Jacob Markstrom's future. There is only 1 year left. I think his contract ends this season. Some Dougie Hamilton buzz. Obviously, the big Hughes question about are all the brothers going to play together? But one thing right off the top I did want to mention here is just like the Sheldon Keefe of it all too. This is his second year behind the bench. They're off to a good start. They had a good training camp. This is something that Tom Fitzgerald discussed with LeBrun. Like, Sheldon's a very good coach. He's demanding a lot more out of these players. Like, there is a new standard in Jersey. And Fitzgerald said the guys know about it now. There's no secrets. There's no surprises. Guys came in great shape. We worked extremely hard in training camp. And like, this group is maturing. Like, they're not kids anymore. It's a young core, and they've realized they're not getting any younger, and they're maturing on and off the ice. So I think we've got this mix of like, this is just kind of the next level for the New Jersey Devils. And they have a coach who's kind of helping them get there too. And I mean, it's also just nice, I think, to toot Sheldon Keefe's horn sometimes.
Yeah, you're always looking for an excuse to do that.
Leafs fans were still poo-pooing on him all year last year when the Devils weren't playing well. Like, that man just can't get a break from Leafs fans who hate his guts. So,
also, we'll see what this does for the Dougie Hamilton trade market, right? We've kind of heard it seemed like the writing was on the wall for him once they got the Luke extension done.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to trade Dougie Hamilton off a team that looks like it could make noise in the playoffs. Like, do you hold serve with him and just, you know, see what happens? It's going to be an interesting thing to track.
Yeah, but do you have like, I saw this in LeBrun's piece, and this idea of, well, you have 2 $9 million defenders who are like top power play unit guys. Like, do you really need them both? It's like, well, why would you just put Dougie Hamilton on your second power play unit?
And maybe
have 2 really good offensive defenders on your roster.
You can have more than one guy, and you can also take some notes from things that have happened over the last couple of years, where this is just one of the most snake-bitten teams we've seen in the league. Yeah. Whether it's Jack Hughes, who we haven't even mentioned, who's been incredible. Jack Hughes, like, struggling to finish out seasons. Whether it's Dougie getting hurt last year,
right?
Whether it's all the goaltending issues, like, you can have more than one good guy. You don't need to say like, all right, we're licked here. We got Luke Hughes playing legit top pair minutes and on the power play. Like, Dougie's completely redundant. If that's my team, I'm not doing that. I'm holding that guy for whenever Luke Hughes misses a handful of games or whatever, because Dougie still, as a second pair guy playing against maybe some easier defensive, some easier defensive competition, you know, he's still capable of giving you good minutes, even though he's overpaid. So yeah, unless they really need something somewhere else, and I'm Tom Fitzgerald, man, I'm holding serve on that.
They're also different players too. Like, Luke Hughes is the skating finesse, make a play at the blue line. If you want to pinch on him, he's gonna skate around you. Whereas Dougie at this point is like, he's got the bomb from the point shot, like. So they're different offensively gifted players. So I think teams can use both. And it seems like Fitzgerald wants to just let things stabilize and be like, let's just play the games.
So that's where
it's October. We don't need to talk about trading Dougie Hamilton yet, but it's an interesting conversation between Tom Fitzgerald and Pierre LeBrun.
And that's where we've landed to. Trade Nazem Kadri yesterday, but hold serve on Dougie
totally
Hamilton.
Different
That's
teams.
it. I completely agree.
In totally different situations.
Like I said, Kadri, Montreal Canadiens, pick up the phone. Gorton, Kent Hughes, call Craig Conroy, make it happen. He's your guy.
You're upsetting
I'm saying
producer
this.
Jeff.
I'm saying this specifically to throw producer Jeff into overdrive. Like he's just gonna turn his laptop off.
He's having a tough time with the Sheldon Keefe and Nazem Kadri conversation specifically.
Enjoy the World Series, my man.
I think if we want to twist the knife a little harder, we can have a discussion about how great Mitch Marner's been in Vegas.
See you
and
next
how
week.
the Leafs might just like not be they don't look great. I saw this tweet, I think it was from Jay Fresh, being like, when are we going to have a conversation about how the Leafs are playing and look exactly like people have been wanting them to for the last 10 years of like, I want dump and chase. I want big hockey man. It's maybe what they are right now. And it's not been good or fun. Just congrats.
Just save it for the Leafs report, please. Please. McIndoe and Frankie snuck something in on me yesterday. And I'm still mad about it. So we don't need to play this game.
It's the Athletic Hockey Show, Sean. We're obviously going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm contractually obliged to discuss them every single show.
If this could be a 31-team show, I'd sign up for it.
The T in the Athletic Hockey Show actually stands for Toronto.
Which T?
There's a silent T. The Athletic Toronto Hockey Show. And I just said Toronto like someone who doesn't live in the city.
Live there. Interesting.
Time to go. Let's take a break. We can get to Kevin Kurz. Lots to get into with the Philadelphia Flyers. That's coming up next on the Athletic Hockey Show. Okay, the Philadelphia Flyers are off to a 3-2-1 start to the season. They haven't played since a 5-2 win against the Seattle Kraken on Monday, but we'll catch them again tonight on Thursday against the Ottawa Senators. To break it all down, Kevin Kurz, our Flyers beat writer, joins us now. Kevin, what do you do in like a week like this? Just hang out at practice, no games, couple days off.
Well, yeah, they flew to Ottawa yesterday. They didn't have practice, so I haven't seen them since Tuesday. I am working on a bigger feature, so I don't mind when they go on these one-offs because it gives me a couple days to like set up interviews and wait for people to call me back. And so I'm fine with that. And honestly, a day trip to Ottawa is a complete pain from Philly because I'm sure there's nothing. So I'm happy here in my apartment tonight.
I would love to know like the door-to-door time on Philly to Ottawa. It's way longer than it should be.
Yeah, I mean, especially because you guys all know where the rink is there, right? So you land and then you're probably taking an hour bus ride. So
second consecutive show with Ottawa rink location slander from me. We were making fun of Frankie Corrado yesterday about it because he was stuck somewhere in the middle.
Well, the only road game I ever skipped is when I was still covering the Islanders, and me and Andrew Gross were staying downtown, and we went to the morning skate, and there was a snowstorm, and we took an Uber ride back, and the Uber driver was like, he was a little bit older, and he's driving in this snowstorm, and there's tractor trailers passing us on either side, and once Andrew and I got back to the hotel, we're like, I don't know if we're going to make it back for the game, so I'm not sure what we did, but
you took a mental health day. Yeah, we can just call it that.
Yeah, it was watch one of those right off the TVs. We were lucky because we actually had spoken to Lou Lamoriello that morning, so like that was the content for the day.
Perfect, easy peasy.
Yeah,
I definitely had days because I lived in Ottawa, but I didn't live in Canada, so I definitely had days where it's like I don't think I'm actually going to make it home safely driving home from the rinks. The snow and the traffic and everything was so bad, like just white knuckling it down the highway. Canadian winters are super fun. But let's get to the Philadelphia Flyers. Like a fine start to the season, 3-2-1. That's like middling. It's maybe as mid as we can get. How surprised are you, Kevin, by this start? Like scale of 1 to 10. Is this where we thought they would be? Is there disappointment in Philly? Have there been like positive or negative surprises? Like what's the general vibe to the start of the season here?
Well, I didn't really like their training camp, so I think the start has been a little bit better than I expected, especially when you consider the first 5 teams they played. They had Florida twice, Winnipeg, Carolina, and Minnesota. So right off the hop, you're starting with 5 really good teams. And then, the first team that I think we can all say we don't expect to make the playoffs in Seattle comes in on Monday, and they got them pretty good. So that was a positive sign. They've steadily improved throughout the year, other than maybe the Winnipeg game, which was their 4th game of the season. So, I think when you consider some of the things that they're hoping will come around haven't quite come around yet. So the fact that they're still 3-2-1, I'm talking about Matvei Michkov, who I know we're going to talk about. Trevor Zegras has been fine, but I don't think he's exactly lit the world on fire yet. The power play has shown signs of getting better, but I think they still only have 3 goals on the season on the power play. So they're getting some contributions, I would say, from some expected sources. When you look at the Noah Cates, Tyson Forster, Bobby Brink line, that was a line that John Tortorella relied on a lot in the second half of the year. They were really solid. So that's been a plus. And Sean Couturier, I don't think we really knew what we were going to get out of him. It's really just a yearly basis with Couturier. It's like this before the start of every year, you think to yourself, well, is this the year where his multiple back surgeries from a couple of years ago is going to catch up to him? It hasn't this year. Rick Tocchet has relied on him really from day one of camp. It's been obvious he's going to put him he's going to really rely on him to be a key contributor, and he has, and Couturier stepped up and done that. So those are some of the more positive signs that I think you have to look at it a little bit optimistically if you're a Flyers fan, because you're waiting for Trevor Zegras, you're waiting for Matvei Michkov to come around, and if those guys do, then this could be a team that hangs around the playoff race.
You mentioned Michkov. We have to focus on him to some extent here. I feel like we're a little bit outside of like the true fever pitch stuff that was surrounding his start. There's questions about his conditioning. Hasn't played in a few third periods, or at least has been, seen his ice time limited down the stretch at certain points. Scored against Seattle, which is good, first goal of the season. But where do we stand on that? What is the status of Michkov, in Rick Tocchet specifically today? Like, how is the rhetoric kind of shifted over the last 5 days, if at all?
Yeah, well, Seattle was his best game by far. I don't even think it's close. And the one thing that Tocchet has reduced his ice time late in a lot of the earlier games before that Seattle game. And I don't think anyone watching him would say that was the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
Michkov just wasn't very good. It was, we've seen him. He's always going to be a guy that's cheating for offense a little bit, right? That's what he brings. And I think Rick Tocchet is fine with that, but he was doing it a little bit too often. And then we've just heard enough from Tocchet over the last little while to figure that Michkov just wasn't in shape when he came into camp. Now, they've partly attributed that to an off-season ankle injury that he had on the ice late in the summer in Russia. I would think that the organization probably was hopeful that he was going to return to the area a little bit earlier than he did. So, that's probably affected him. But Tocchet's also mentioned, he's got to take care of himself off the ice a little bit better. And that's in terms of recovery. He's mentioned the word eating, at least 3 or 4 times. So that seems to me that's something that anybody can appreciate. I think we can all understand that, if you've got a poor diet, it's not going to work out so well. But that said, I don't think anyone's worried about him in the long term. I think they just view this as a short-term thing. They've consistently praised his work ethic since he's got here. His desire to get better is something that no one's ever questioned. Keith Jones has talked about it often. Danny Briere has. Even Tocchet has mentioned that in practice he's still working hard. So this is just something he's going to have to work through. So, it's obviously coming off of the Seattle game is a hopeful sign that maybe he's starting to turn a corner. Because they're going to need him, right? He's still the most important individual when it comes to this rebuild. He's got to be, if not a superstar, at least like a 40-goal all-star level player if this is going to work. So, that's why you talk about the start, and it's been pretty good, 3-2-1, but that's sort of the dark cloud that's been hanging over this start, this encouraging start, is that, he's got to get going here.
Yeah, and you and I had talked. I think the three of us talked over the summer when we were doing the post-mortem on the Flyers' previous season and kind of the look ahead to this one. You'd praise his work ethics and his work habit and his desire. I'd heard that from people around the league too. Honestly, when we were doing player tier stuff, like there was no question over how much Michkov wanted it or whether he was wired the right way for it, right? Like it seems like consensus is like this guy does everything right. He shows all the traits that you want to see. And I think that's certainly been in the back of my mind as we've seen the way things have started here. But like my takeaway from a lot of this is Tocchet. I think he's threaded the needle pretty well in terms of finding, levying legit criticism at Michkov, being honest about what he's struggled with and where he needs to get better, but also not throwing gasoline on a potential fire early on. Like if this was a different guy or a different temperament at head coach, we're hearing a lot more about it. It's certainly framed differently about as far as Matvei Michkov starting the season and maybe not the best of shape and blah, blah, blah. I think Tocchet is, been as advertised there with him in terms of, there's some tough love, but also he's framing it the right way to stop it from turning into something sillier than maybe it otherwise would have been.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if this still was John Tortorella in charge and he was benching Michkov,
I don't want to get specific there.
Yeah, the rhetoric would be far worse. I can't even imagine what social media would be looking like because, I go back. I think John Tortorella handled Matvei Mitchkov great. And I think Michkov himself has said that. It's we haven't talked to him much because we're still speaking through an interpreter. And I think he's a little bit reluctant to open up with the interpreter there. But if you go back and read some of his Russian language interviews from on the off season, he had a good relationship with Tortorella, and they conversed, I think, over text message after Torts was fired. So, the part of it right now that I push back on is I think you hear some criticism from afar about Michkov saying, oh, well, he had some character issues coming into the draft, and now they're all kind of bubbling to the surface. That's not the case here, at least from what I could see. If you go back, the criticisms of Michkov where before he was drafted was maybe he was a little bit not a great teammate. Maybe he didn't act great or, on the ice if he wasn't getting his ice time or if he wasn't getting his goals. But, part of the reason the Flyers drafted him is because in those draft meetings in the lead up to the draft, he admitted to them, sometimes I don't act great around my teammates because I expect them to be so good and they're just not as good as he is. So he's a 16, 17-year-old kid at the time. So, and as far as Tocchet goes, he's mentioned a couple times that Michkov has come to him. He's wanted to do video. He's taking the time off the ice to try and get better, to try and fix this. And so I have very little doubt that at some point he's going to start to pick it up. And I covered a guy in Erik Karlsson who was notorious for coming to camp out of shape.
Yep.
Or maybe that's a little too harsh. Maybe I should say playing himself into hockey shape.
That's a very generous way of putting it. Yeah, it's very diplomatic.
And, I remember his first season after he got traded from Ottawa to San Jose. I mean, he was brutal for the first couple of months, and then he got himself into shape. And by mid-November, he was Erik Karlsson again. So I fully expect Michkov. I don't know if it's going to happen tonight or next week, but at some point I think he's going to get it together and he's going to more resemble the guy that we saw in the second half of last year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's also a kid too, right? Like he's 20 years old. I think we maybe take it for granted when we see like respectfully the hockey robots that are like a Connor Bedard who go into the draft and they're already this like well-oiled machine of like, I eat the right way. I train all the time. I'm on the ice all the time, like hockey. So then when we see a young kid who's maybe not like working with Gary Roberts and has the best nutritionist on North Vancouver and can be like, oh, what's wrong? But like, they're also just a kid who they're figuring out how to be a professional athlete in real time. Like that's okay too.
Philly's a great food city, man. As long as he's making some better decisions when it's late, like he'll be fine. He's a 20-year-old who's figuring out that you can't just eat straight garbage after games and expect it to pay. Like it's fine. I'm not worried about this kid at all.
And he had, it was his first off season where he's got a pocket full of money. And let's not forget all of the things this kid has gone through in his life already. You know, he loses his father right before the draft. He's got to go through the complication of getting his family over here to the U.S. after he comes and joins the Flyers. Like, he's had a lot going on. He's probably had to grow up really quickly off the ice. Did he, you know, is there a chance he had a little bit too much fun this summer? Maybe. But again, like, as you said, Hailey, he's a kid. He's going to figure it out. It's probably a lesson he'll take with him in the next off season. And, yeah, I don't think there's any worry long-term about him at this point.
All right, let's move on. We did kind of touch on the head coach in Philly this season. It's Rick Tocchet. There was obviously quite a bit of chatter. I mean, there was a lot of different beat writers saying why Rick Tocchet is perfect for insert team here. But Philly obviously was one of them where people were talking about this could be a really great fit. It's still early, Kevin, but how are we seeing the Rick Tocchet Philadelphia Flyers kind of partnership working out in practice?
Well, yeah, obviously Rick Tocchet is known more for his MO is sort of the defensive aspect, right? And he's talked about that a lot, how he wants the goalies to only play half the net. And, you know, for the Flyers goalies, even if they had half a net behind them in the last 3 years, it probably would have been a struggle. So, defensively, that's where it's been encouraging. He's leaned really heavily on Travis Sanheim, and Sanheim has stepped up and been, you know, other than maybe Dan Vladar, has probably been their team MVP to this point. Cam York, he didn't have Cam York for the first 3 games after an injury late in camp. Cam York, for me, was the Flyers' best player in camp, someone that's, you know, moving on from not seeing eye to eye with John Tortorella and looks a little rejuvenated. So he gets back in the lineup as their top pair. They've been great. Jamie Drysdale's skating well. You know, I know the hope with him is that eventually he's going to become more of an offensive type. That hasn't quite happened yet, but he's at least moving well. Him and Nick Seeler are a pretty good second pair. The third pair has been kind of a work in progress and not in a good way. That's where they really lack the depth on the back end. Rasmus Ristolainen is out at least another couple weeks. He's a guy they'll welcome back. But, you know, defensively, they've been pretty good. They've allowed very few shots in the league on average. I think they've made it a little bit easier on their goaltenders, but the goaltending has been better. I know we want to talk about that, but, you know, defensively, any coach will tell you, right? They'd rather have the defensive structure in place and wait for the offense to come around than vice versa. That's sort of what's been it reflects what the Flyers have been so far. Defensively, they've been fine. Offensively, they've been a little dry at times, but, you know, they hope that comes around with, you know, Michkov and Trevor Zegras and whatnot. But defensively, they're doing some encouraging things.
Kev, we've talked at length, I think, in various spots about how brutal their goaltending has been, really, for the last 2 seasons. Last season in particular, if they get anything even approaching league average, garden variety, mediocre play from their goalies last year, I think the shape of the rebuild looks a lot different. I think we would have spoken about them in different terms coming out of last season. We've seen Dan Vladar play well thus far. He's got a .929 save percentage, a few goals saved above expected, and 4 starts already. Whether it's him, whether it's Sam Ersson, like, what is the state of things moving forward? And it has Vladar, you know, kind of put his flag in the ground in terms of taking more starts and maybe emerging as a legit, you know, if not a 1B, then a 1A in a timeshare sort of situation.
Well, right now he's emerging as the guy that's going to get the bulk of the work. But you know, you guys know how it works now. No goalie is going to start 60 games, right? And I would assume Sam Ersson is going to play again very shortly, whether it's in Ottawa on Thursday or Saturday against the Islanders. But Vladar has earned his playing time. He's earned the right to be the guy that's sort of taken the lead in that race. And, you know, Sam Ersson's only played 2 games, and neither of his games have been terrible. And they were both against, you know, they're against Carolina and Winnipeg, so 2 pretty good teams. But, you know, with Vladar, he saw an opportunity as a free agent for a chance to become what he, at least right now, seems to be becoming. And that's a guy that's willing to take on more of a role. Now, you know, you have to take it with a grain of salt a little bit, because this is still a guy that's never started more than 29 games in a single season. Yeah. So is he going to be able to, you know, maybe not double that, but is he a guy that's going to be able to start 41 games? That's pretty significant increase over 29 games. So, it's looking good for him so far, and as well as the Flyers have played defensively, Vladar has certainly done his part. I mean, he has looked very good. The numbers reflect what at least I've seen from watching him play. He's a big guy, right? He looks like he's aggressive at the right times. So that's a hopeful thing. And Sean, I mean, you're right. It's anyone can look at the Flyers team save percentage over the last couple of years, and yeah, if Vladar is even just, if Vladar and Urson combine to have just a league average save percentage, I mean, that's a double-digit increase in points.
Urson was at 883 last year, and between him and Fedotov and Kolosov, that group allowed almost 50 goals above expected. I mean, that is abysmal. So they don't need Dan Vladar to be at 930 for 60 games to be better here. If they get a decent stretch from him for any amount of time, like, things are going to look a lot different from them. Like, you really can't overstate, and Kev, to your credit, you haven't. You can't overstate how bad that goaltending has been. And I think the fact that they're getting anything that looks even halfway competent here is a major change for sure.
And you have to look at it from Sam Erson's perspective too, that he's still a young guy. And, midway through 2 seasons ago, midway through the year, Carter Hart goes away. And then it's Sam Erson. And literally for the last, this isn't overstating at all. For the last year and a half, it's been Sam Erson and no legitimate NHL backups. So that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid who, I think he's 24 or 25 right now, tops. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy when, he had to know that he was the only guy that could stop the puck on a regular basis when you've got Felix Sandstrom, Cal Peterson, Alexei Kolosov, Ivan Fedotov. I mean, these guys, none of these 4 guys is in the NHL right now. So, with Erson, I think you have to be a little bit patient with him too. And like I said, he's going to get a chance to play some more. I think taking the pressure off of it, Vladar taking the pressure off of him, and also increasing the competition a little bit is going to be good for a guy like Sam, because we've seen in pressure situations, not so much in Philadelphia, but on the international stage. I mean, he played well in the Four Nations tournament. He only got 1 start. He shut out the Americans, and in a game that didn't mean anything to the Americans, but still, he shut them out. And then he played very well in the World Championships too. So, Danny Briere and Keith Jones both voiced their support for Sam and their belief in Sam before the season started. They're going to let this play out. He's going to get his playing time. It's up to him now to see what he does with it, because his playing time might not be as much as he maybe anticipated early if Vladar keeps going the way he is.
All right, final question for you, Kevin, before we let you go. Owen Tippet, he was someone who was not happy with his 2024-25 season, only 20 goals in 77 games. That's fewer than the year before. He already has 5 this season through 6 games. Do we think we're seeing an Owen Tippet offensive emergence here this season?
Yeah, Tippett's an interesting guy because it seemed like throughout camp, Rick Tocchet and really Tortorella last year was trying to do the same thing, just trying to figure out where he fits, because he's a unique guy because he's got a ton of speed and he's got a great shot, but just it was difficult for Tortorella especially to find anyone that he really had chemistry with. And frankly, I think Rick Tocchet's still trying to do the same thing. He's still trying to figure out which pieces fit in the top 6, whether that's, Trevor Zegras, he's moving around a little bit. He's got Christian Dvorak there now, playing a little bit wing center. And Tippett's a guy that, we've all seen the flashes of his offensive skill. And, he's even added a little bit of a physicality to his game. He's a decent sized guy. So we'll see, but Tippett's a guy that, he struggled last year. I think it was a couple things. I think it was the lack of chemistry with anyone on the roster, and I think he admitted he was pretty emotionally. I think he sagged a little bit when the Flyers traded some of his good friends. Morgan Frost, Joel Farabee to Calgary. Those were maybe his 2 closest friends in the dressing room, and Scott Lawton too is a guy that everybody loved. So he did struggle with that. But yeah, he's a driven guy. He's signed here long term. He's an interesting case because the Flyers do have a lot of wingers, and they've got another one coming next year probably in Porter Martone, the 6th overall pick in last year's draft. But for a guy that if he can become a regular 30-goal scorer, I think his salary is $6.2 million. I mean, in a couple of years, if he becomes a 30-goal scorer in a couple of years, those guys are going to be making a whole lot more than $6 million. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him because he does have something to prove, I think, this year. He knows it because of his step back last year, and he's, right now he's one of the parts driving this offense.
Lots to chew on for the Philadelphia Flyers this season. Thanks so much, Kevin. I think if you guys are listening and you want to get more, Kevin has a great story, what he's seeing from the Flyers after 6 games, a little bit more depth. I read that story and came up with all my questions for the show. So if you were interested in those topics, just read the story too. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
All right, welcome back to the Athletic Hockey Show. We're just going to go around the league. Jeff actually put the title of the segment Around the League, Goofy Kill Time and Show. That's our plan here for the final segment of the Athletic Hockey Show. We actually do have a couple little news items that we can get to. We don't need to be super goofy this time. The New York Islanders fired their goalie coach, Pierre Greco, on Wednesday and have brought in Sergei Naumovs, who has a history with starter Ilya Sorokin, firing a goalie coach mid-seasons. And this early, it's not even mid-season, early in the season is a bit unusual, but it's pretty clear that the organization is trying to get Ilya Sorokin back on track, a 2-3-0 start, 3.90 goals against average, and an .873 save percentage. Sean, you had a lot of folks talking about how he was maybe technically the best goalie in the NHL. The stats haven't proven that, and it seems pretty clear that the Islanders are trying to get that guy back.
Yeah, across the board over the summer when we were doing the player tiers stuff, didn't matter who we were talking to. Didn't matter whether it was a GM or a data analyst or a coach or everybody was on board with Sorokin being, maybe not the best goalie in the league, but closer than not, right? Like a top tier guy. And I think what people were willing to do was look past the season he had last year, right? A lot of that blame went to the Islanders overall as a team. I know people continually talked about not just the amount of shots that he faced, but the quality of shots that he faced. That was a pretty poor, I think people still have it in their minds, maybe people who don't pay super close attention to the Islanders, that this is the Barry Trotz, Lou Lamoriello, choke you out defensively teams of a few years ago, and it's not. This is a team that struggles with structure, and it struggles to limit not just quality but quantity in front of Sorokin. So I think people were willing to look at that as an explanation for the mediocre overall numbers that we saw from Sorokin last season. But clearly, man, Pierre Greco was on a short leash. Life as a goalie coach under Patrick Waugh seems like it might be difficult. I don't think I would want to be the goalie coach working for one of the greatest goalies to ever live, right? So we do see, it is an interesting time to make a change, but I think it's also an indication really of how important Sorokin is to the overall state of things there. That guy is as close as they have outside of Matthew Schaefer, obviously, to a franchise player. And if he's at his best, they're going to have a chance to contend for a playoff spot. And if he continues to play the way that he has in the first 5 or 6 games of the season, they're not going to have a prayer. So I think they realize how important he is, obviously, and I think this is an interesting way to try to get him going by bringing in, a coach who he's got some real experience with.
Mm-hmm. GM Matthew Darce said that the change in the goalie coach was 100% his call. He didn't necessarily address whether he and Sorokin had a conversation about the move, but he said it was his decision. The players will never tell you, I want this coach or that coach. But I think Matthew Darce obviously knew that those two had success together in the KHL. They have a history, so we'll see if that helps out. Let's stick with the Islanders for a second here. First overall pick Matthew Schaefer is having a nice start to his rookie season. He's leading rookies in points with 7. He has 2 goals, 5 assists, also leads all rookies. When we were doing our draft in the first week of the season with Dom, I was sitting here for the Calder and thinking, no one's picked Matthew Schaefer yet. Maybe I should do that. You know what? I'm going to go with Zeev Buium just because maybe the Islanders aren't going to be good and no one's going to be getting points and Schaefer's not going to pop
18-year-old
offensively.
defenseman, yada, yada. Right?
Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. I'm dumb. We're all dumb. He's having a great start. Again, leading all rookies. And he's also putting his skating talent on display. This is from Dom's 16 stats, and they track stats and skating and speeds and all this now through the NHL. So since the NHL's tracking era started in 2021-22, there have only been 11 seasons in which a defenseman has had 2 or more 20-plus mile-per-hour speed bursts per game. Cale Makar's 2.6 per game in 2022-23 is the highest. Schaefer is averaging 5 speed bursts. I'm doing that because, like, whatever that means. He skates quick for a burst. It's like my dog Bono. He's got a quick speed burst. He's had 5 speed bursts of 20-plus miles per hour.
That's incredible, and that's was the book on him coming into this season. You know, if whether it's Corey or Scott or any of our prospect guys, but also just generally scouting, like that is his superpower. Is that skating? So the fact that he's had the opportunity to show that off, and really just generally be more. The fact that he's this dynamic, just straight out of the gates, it's incredible. Like we talked about it a second ago, like 18-year-old defenseman, like you think there's going to be some kind of learning curve, and that's obviously true.
Or just like a timidness, but
there's nothing. But what I will say is 18-year-old defensemen who are picked at that point in the draft, there aren't many of them, right? It's Victor Hedman, it's guys like that. They tend to hold their own because it's an indicator of like high-end talent and high-end quality. Like those guys, you don't maybe are they going to do those kind of players lead rookies in points? Like maybe not necessarily, but they also tend to tread water pretty well just because it's such an indicator of like extreme talent, right? So I'm not surprised that Schaefer's doing well. I think there's enough track record of players with his profile doing something similar. But man, the fact that the production is where it is, in the fact that he has the confidence and usage and the confidence of the coaching staff to just be able to dial it up that far, that frequently during games is wild. And man, if we have a couple more Cale Makar clones running around the league over the next couple years, I am not going to complain about that because there's nothing more exciting, man, than seeing a defenseman, pick up steam like that through the neutral zone and get to that level. So yeah, I'm psyched. I'm psyched about the Matthew Schaefer era so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just game changing, break the game wide open kind of speed. And also from 16 stats, this isn't just all flash and speed. We mentioned the points. He also is 16th among defensemen in net rating to start the season. Again, 18-year-old rookie who, when you get a first overall pick, like you expect they're going to be great, but I do think it's fair to say that he has exceeded expectations early in the season here. Bo Horvat was on the NHL Network podcast with Mike Rupp hosted it. I think it's called Players Only. And Bo Horvat said he's been phenomenal. In my opinion, he is one of our best, if not our best player right now.
That's okay. Bo Horvat says it. That's good enough for me.
I agree with you, Bo Horvat. He looks great. Great start for Matthew Schaefer. They had a 0-3 start to the season. The Islanders did. They've won 3 straight. So if Schaefer can keep this up, if Sorokin can get it together, maybe the Islanders will be a bit more interesting or just a little less bad this season. Let's get to one more thought. We haven't really talked much about the Western Conference since the start of the show when we were poo-pooing on the Calgary Flames.
It's okay.
I am sorry for that. With all the chat about the New Jersey Devils too, the Colorado Avalanche, they are also at the top of the standings. And I want to mention the Martin Nečas, Nathan MacKinnon chemistry here.
Yeah.
Through 7 games, Nečas has 5 goals and 11 points. Nathan MacKinnon has 6 and 10. Basically, all that damage has been at 5-on-5. In 84 minutes on a line with Arturi Lehkonen, Colorado's top trio has already outscored teams 9-1, scoring 6.5 goals per 60. That's courtesy of Dom's 16 stats again. Just a great start for the Avs in general, but also their top line here. And because there's a lot of worry about what are the Avs going to do without Mikko Rantanen. It's like, well, Martin Nečas can slide in there and they're going to look great.
And Necas was fantastic for the most part, especially in the regular season, at least after they acquired him last season. And he'd been good with Carolina. The issue for him always is following up great seasons with something similar, right? He's had the chance to do that at a couple different points throughout his career. Hasn't happened. I think what we're seeing now with him is, that kind of consistent, sustained play over multiple years that we haven't seen from him. And it's coming at a very fortuitous time for Martin Nečas, because Martin Nečas is a pending unrestricted free agent. So there's no better place to be if you're a forward of his type than riding shotgun with Nathan MacKinnon during a contract year. So man, I'm watching this closely. I think everybody who has any interest in the free agent market is as well. Like, I'm fascinated in seeing how much money Martin Nečas is going to be worth on his next deal, whether it's in Colorado or elsewhere.
The Colorado Avalanche play the Carolina Hurricanes today, a team we didn't really mention, but if the Devils are a team that want to be a top one in the East, like the Canes are maybe the more obvious choice. They've had a nice start to the season. That's a good hockey team too, obviously. That is probably the game to watch, is Avs Canes tonight. As always, there's a ton of games on Thursday at 12 tonight, but I think that's the one I've circled today. Not Blackhawks Lightning, Ducks Bruins.
No.
Penguins Panthers.
Nope. No thanks. It's going to be this is a Hurricanes Denver night over here. Denver. The Denver Avalanche.
Ooh. What happened there? 5-1-0 start for the Canes, 5-0-2 for the Avs. That'll be a good game.
It's background. That's background during power rankings when I'm in hell, dealing with the hated Dom Listician.
Yeah, it starts at 9:00 Eastern though, so
it's usually when we start writing. Honestly, it's fine.
I thought you started writing at midnight.
That is when I start to think about writing. Is it 9:00?
2 years away from being 2 years away. Bruno Cabuco, right. The gift that keeps on giving. All right, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the Athletic Hockey Show. Thanks to Kurz for joining us. A good chat about the Philadelphia Flyers. Sean has once again done his job.
Thank you.
Fine today. It was a fine effort.
It was adequate. Thank you. We aim for adequacy.
A passable podcast by the two of us. The Prospect Boys have the next show tomorrow. Sean and I will be back next Thursday. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to stay informed on the latest in the world of hockey. And join our Discord community and stay tuned here for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.